The doorbell camera flickered to life at exactly 3:47 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon, and Kang Miho's world tilted on its axis. Two identical faces stared up at the lens, round, defiant, unmistakably his. The boys couldn't have been more than 8 years old, with skin the color of warm honey, tight coils of black hair, and eyes that held the same sharp, calculating gleam he saw in his own mirror every morning. They stood with their arms crossed, mirror images of each other, wearing matching denim jackets and expressions of pure determination. "We know you're in there," the one on the left announced in perfect Korean, his tone dripping with the kind of sass that made Miho's jaw drop. "We've been watching you for 3 days. You leave for your business meetings." The child made aggressive air quotes. "At 9 a.m. every Tuesday and Thursday. You get your dry cleaning every Wednesday. And you have terrible taste in sports cars. That red one makes you look like you're compensating for something." The one on the right snickered, then added, "We're not leaving until you open this door, APPA. And before you try to pretend you don't know us, we brought receipts." He held up a manila folder that looked comically large in his small hands. Miho stood frozen in his marble foyer, his phone slipping from his fingers and clattering on the Italian tile. 8 years. It had been 8 years since Mary had vanished from his life like smoke, leaving nothing but her apartment key on his desk and a hole in his chest he'd spent nearly a decade trying to fill with work, women, and whiskey. He'd been untouchable back then, the youngest underboss in the Kang family syndicate, arrogant enough to think he could have everything he wanted. Mary had been a light in his dark world, working as a translator at one of his legitimate business fronts. She'd been brilliant, funny, beautiful in a way that made him forget about the blood on his hands. And he'd ruined it all with his ego and a moment of weakness. With someone who meant nothing. But children, his children. "Sir." His head of security, Yoon, appeared at his elbow, hand on his weapon. "Should I remove them?" "No." The word came out strangled. Miho moved toward the door like a man walking toward his execution. When he opened it, the full force of the twins' presence hit him like a physical blow. They were so small, so real, and they looked at him with a mixture of curiosity, judgment, and something else he couldn't quite name. Maybe hope, buried deep beneath layers of childish bravado. "Took you long enough?" the left twin said, pushing past him into the house without invitation. "Nice place. Very. I'm a rich guy with no personality. Where's the kitchen? We're hungry." The right twin followed, equally brazen, pausing only to look Miho up and down with theatrical disapproval. "Mom was right. You do dress like you're trying too hard. Is that shirt silk? Who wears silk on a Saturday? Who?" Miho finally found his voice. "Who are you?" They turned in unison, identical expressions of exasperation on their faces. "I'm Kai," said the one who'd spoken first. "I'm Kieran," said the other. "We're your sons. Obviously. Did you not see the folder? We've got DNA evidence, birth certificates, photos of Mom looking very pregnant and very sad. Want us to start from the beginning? Or can we skip to the part where you explain why you never came looking for us?" The accusation in Kieran's voice cut deeper than any knife Miho had ever faced. He followed them into his pristine kitchen, watching in stunned silence as Kai hopped onto a bar stool and Kieran began opening his cabinets with the confidence of someone who owned the place. "Wow, you have nothing but protein powder and expensive wine," Kieran announced. "Do you even eat? Mom says people who don't eat are either too busy being important or too sad to care. Which one are you?" Miho's hands were shaking. He gripped the edge of the counter to steady himself. "Where is she? Where's Mary? Oh, now you care?" Kai swung his legs, the picture of theatrical indifference. "She's grocery shopping, which is what we were supposed to be doing with her, but we kind of ditched her at the store. She's going to be so mad," Kieran added, though he didn't sound particularly concerned. "But we had to do this. She kept saying your father is busy, and he doesn't know about you and all this stuff about protecting us. But we're 8, not stupid. We found your address, we saw you leave the house, and we figured out pretty quickly that you live literally 3 houses down from us." 3 houses? Yep. Kai popped the P with satisfaction. "Mom moved back to Korea 6 months ago for work. Imagine our surprise when we started seeing this tall, grumpy-looking guy who looks exactly like us walking around the neighborhood. Well, like us if we grew up to be obsessed with designer suits and looking intimidating. Miho felt like he was having a stroke. Mary was here, in Seoul, 3 houses away. And these boys, his boys, had been living so close he could have walked past them on the street. Why didn't she tell me? The words came out as barely a whisper. The twins exchanged a look, and for the first time, their cocky facades cracked slightly. Kieran pulled out the folder and opened it, spreading photos across the granite counter. There she was, Mary, round with pregnancy, her face showing a pain that went beyond physical. And there were dates, receipts, even a few grainy photos that looked like they'd been taken from a distance. "That's you," Kai said quietly, pointing to one photo. "With her. That woman with the red dress. Mom was on her way to surprise you at your office for your birthday. She saw you kissing her outside the restaurant." The memory slammed into Miho like a freight train. His 30th birthday. Yuna from the Busan branch had flown in, had gotten drunk, had pressed herself against him in a moment of old familiarity. He'd kissed her back for maybe 10 seconds before pushing her away, disgusted with himself, knowing it meant nothing. He'd gone home to find Mary's key and nothing else. "I tried to find her," Miho said, his voice rough. "For months. I had people looking everywhere. She just disappeared." "She went to America," Kieran said matter-of-factly. "To her aunt in Atlanta. That's where we were born. She didn't tell you because she thought you didn't want her anymore. And also because she found out what you actually do for a living." He gave Miho a pointed look. "We know, by the way. We're not stupid. You're in the Mafia or whatever you call it here. Mom doesn't like to talk about it. But we overheard her on the phone with Auntie saying something about organized crime and dangerous lifestyle. So why come here?" Miho couldn't understand their logic. "If you know what I am, why seek me out?" Kai shrugged, but his eyes were suspiciously bright. "Because you're our dad, and we wanted to know if you were actually a bad person or just a person who does bad things sometimes. There's a difference. And also because Mom is lonely," Kieran added softly. "She pretends she's not, but we hear her crying sometimes at night, and we thought maybe, I don't know, maybe you missed her too. Maybe you didn't know about us and that's why you never came." The apartment suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. Miho looked at these 2 extraordinary children, brilliant, brave, heartbreaking, and felt something crack open in his chest that he'd kept locked away for years. "I didn't know," he said, and his voice broke on the words. "I swear to you I didn't know. If I had known." "You would have what?" Kai challenged. "Married her? Changed your job? Played happy family?" "I don't know," Miho admitted, and the honesty of it seemed to surprise the twins. "But I would have tried. I would have wanted to try." A phone rang, shrill and insistent. Kieran pulled a smartphone from his pocket. Where had 8-year-olds gotten smartphones? And grimaced at the screen. "It's Mom. She's blowing up our phones. I think she figured out we're not at the candy store." "We should probably go," Kai said, sliding off the stool. But he hesitated, looking up at Miho with an expression that was trying hard to stay neutral. Do you want us to come back? Or are we just a weird surprise you'd rather forget about?" The question broke something in Miho. He dropped to one knee so he could look them in the eyes. These magnificent boys who had his face and their mother's courage. "Come back," he said fiercely. "Come back every day. I want to know everything about you. What you like, what you hate, what you dream about. I want—" His voice caught. "I want to be your father. If you'll let me." The twins looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations that only twins could have. Then Kieran nodded. "Okay, but you have to apologize to Mom. Really apologize. Not that weak stuff men do where they say sorry but don't mean it. And you have to prove you're not a total disaster. And you have to answer all our questions about the Mafia stuff," Kai added. "Because it's actually kind of cool, even though Mom would kill us for saying that." "Deal." Miho held out his hand, and after a moment, each boy shook it solemnly. They were almost to the door when Kieran turned back. "Hey, Dad." The word Dad nearly brought Miho to his knees again. "Yeah, that lady in the red dress? The one you kissed? If we ever see her, We're going to roast her so hard. Just warning you. Despite everything, the shock, the grief, the overwhelming avalanche of emotions. Miho laughed. Actually laughed. For what felt like the first time in years. I wouldn't expect anything less. They left, and Miho stood in his empty house that suddenly felt more like a home than it had in 8 years. Wondering how his entire life had changed in the span of 20 minutes. Outside, he heard voices. The twins chattering excitedly, and then another voice, one that still haunted his dreams. Kai, Kieran, where have you been? I was worried sick. Mary. His Mary. 3 houses away. Miho walked to his window and caught just a glimpse of her. Older, maybe a little tired, but still so beautiful it hurt. She had her hands on her hips, trying to look stern while the twins talked over each other, clearly explaining where they'd been. He watched her face cycle through shock, anger, fear, and something else he couldn't name. She looked up, right at his house, and even from this distance, he felt the weight of her gaze. Tomorrow, he thought. Tomorrow he would apologize. Tomorrow he would try to make things right. But tonight, he had to figure out how to be a father to 2 8-year-old boys who were smarter, funnier, and braver than he'd ever been. His phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. This is Kai. We hacked your number from your doorbell system. Mom says we can't come over tomorrow because she needs to process, but we'll be there Monday after school. Also, we want pizza. The expensive kind. K&K. Miho saved the number, then read the message again. A smile spreading across his face despite everything. He was a father. Somehow, impossibly, he was a father. And those boys were absolutely going to keep him on his toes. Monday afternoon arrived like a storm Miho had been watching approach on the horizon. Inevitable, electric, and potentially devastating. He'd spent all of Sunday in a strange fugue state, alternating between staring at the text messages from his sons. His sons? The word still felt surreal. Researching child development like he was studying for the most important exam of his life, and resisting the urge to walk 3 houses down and camp on Mary's doorstep until she agreed to talk to him. His mother, Kang So-hee, had called no fewer than 14 times, each voicemail escalating in concern after Yoon had apparently let slip that something significant had happened. Miho hadn't called her back yet. How did you tell your mother that she'd been a grandmother for 8 years without knowing it? At 3:30 p.m., his doorbell rang, and the camera showed 2 backpack-wearing tornadoes bouncing impatiently on his doorstep. Let us in. We brought our homework and Mom packed us snacks, even though she's still super mad. Kai yelled at the camera. Miho opened the door, and the boys rushed past him in a whirlwind of energy and noise that was so different from the usual silence of his house that he felt momentarily disoriented. Your house still looks like a furniture showroom, Kieran announced, dropping his backpack on the pristine white sofa in a way that made Miho's housekeeper would have had heart palpitations. Do you actually live here, or is this just where you sleep between being intimidating? I live here, Miho said, still trying to adjust to the reality of children in his space. Children who were his, who had his blood, who looked at him with expectation and challenge in equal measure. Barely, Kai muttered, already exploring the living room. Mom's place has pictures and plants and stuff that makes it feel like people with feelings live there. You have a glass sculpture that probably costs more than a car. It's very serial killer chic. I'm not a serial killer. That's exactly what a serial killer would say, Kieran pointed out, pulling out what looked like math homework. But fine, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. So here's the deal. Mom said we could come here for 2 hours on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays until she determines if this situation is appropriate. He made air quotes again, and Miho was starting to realize it was one of his signature moves. She's still really mad, Kai added helpfully, settling on the floor with his own homework. She's using her "I'm disappointed" voice, which is worse than her "I'm angry" voice. You're going to have to work really hard to fix this. I know. Miho sat down carefully, still not quite sure how to navigate this new reality. What did you tell her about Saturday? The twins exchanged a look. The truth, Kieran said. That we've been watching you, that we found your house, that we ambushed you because we wanted to meet our dad. She freaked out, obviously. Lots of crying. Some yelling. She called you some words in English that we're not allowed to repeat. He paused. But she also looked at the pictures of us together that she took through the window. She followed you? Miho couldn't help the small smile. Duh. She's our mom. She's not going to let us just disappear into a possible crime lord's house without surveillance, Kai said reasonably. Anyway, she saw how you looked at us, and I think that's the only reason we're here right now. She said you looked genuinely shocked, and maybe not like a complete monster. High praise, Miho said dryly. For her, yeah. Kieran chewed on his pencil. She's been really hurt for a long time. We don't remember not having mom, obviously, but we've noticed stuff. Like how she never dates anyone. Ever. And how she gets really quiet on Father's Day. And how she has exactly one picture of you, hidden in a box in her closet, and sometimes we catch her looking at it when she thinks we're asleep. The image hit Miho square in the chest. Mary, alone in the dark, looking at a picture of him. Mary raising their children by herself. Mary, who'd been 3 houses away for 6 months while he'd been oblivious. I need to talk to her, he said. Yeah. Good luck with that, Kai snorted. She's in full avoidance mode. She literally scheduled an extra shift at work this week, so she doesn't have to be home when we're with you. Where does she work? She's a senior translator and cultural consultant at Kim and Associates, Kieran said. They handle international business contracts. She's really good at it. Won the company's Excellence Award last year. Pride surged through Miho, unexpected and fierce. Of course, Mary had excelled. She'd always been brilliant. Kim and Associates, he repeated thoughtfully. He knew Park Ji-hoon, one of the senior partners. They'd done business before, legitimate business, through his family's legal enterprises. Don't even think about using your connections to ambush her at work, Kai warned, pointing his pencil at Miho like a weapon. We can see you thinking it. That's a terrible idea. How do you? You got a weird look in your eye, like a scheming look. Kieran mimicked an exaggerated scheming expression. We're 8, not blind. Also, we're really good at reading people. Mom says it's because we're twins. But I think it's because we had to learn to read her moods, so we knew when she was having a bad day about you. The casual way they said it, a bad day about you, made Miho feel like he'd been punched. They settled into homework, and Miho found himself fascinated by the glimpse into their lives. Kai was a math whiz who finished his multiplication worksheet in minutes, then started doodling elaborate cartoon scenes in the margins. Kieran struggled more with math but flew through his reading comprehension, occasionally reading passages out loud in a dramatic voice that suggested a future in theater. You're good at that, Miho ventured. Reading. I want to be an actor, Kieran said matter-of-factly. Or maybe a lawyer. Someone who gets to argue and perform. Kai wants to be a video game designer. Or a chef, Kai added. I haven't decided. Mom says we have time. Your mom is right. She usually is, both boys said in unison, then grinned at each other. An hour into their visit, Miho's phone rang. His mother, again. You should probably answer that, Kai observed. She's called like 8 times since we got here. Your phone has been buzzing like crazy. Miho hesitated, then answered. Iyama. Kong Miho, why have you been avoiding me? Yoon said something happened. Are you hurt? Is there a problem with the business? His mother's voice was sharp with worry and barely concealed annoyance. I'm fine. There's no problem with the business. Miho looked at the twins, who were watching him with undisguised curiosity. But something did happen. Can you come over? Now? Now? Miho, I'm in the middle of... Please, Iyama. It's important. He took a breath. It's family. The word family did it. 15 minutes later, his mother swept through the door in designer clothes and pearls, her eyes scanning for whatever crisis had prompted the summons. She stopped dead when she saw the twins sitting on the floor. Who? She looked from them to Miho, and he watched her sharp mind work, saw the moment comprehension dawned. Her hand flew to her mouth. Miho, Iyama, these are my sons, Kai and Kieran. He gestured to each twin. Boys, this is your grandmother. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Kai, ever the bold one, stood up and bowed politely. Hello, grandmother. Nice to meet you. We're 8 years old, we live 3 houses down. And yes, this is just as weird for us as it is for you. So he made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. She moved forward slowly, as if afraid they might disappear, then dropped to her knees in front of them. Her expensive skirt forgotten. "You're real," she whispered, reaching out to touch Kieran's face with trembling fingers. "You're really real." "Very real," Kieran confirmed. "We have birth certificates and everything. I'm a grandmother." Sohee's eyes filled with tears. "I have grandchildren. She looked at Miho with an expression he couldn't quite read. Joy, anger, confusion all mixed together. "Where have they been? Why didn't you tell me?" "He didn't know about us until Saturday," Kai explained. "Our mom left Korea before we were born and never told him she was pregnant. It's a whole thing. Kind of dramatic, honestly." "Your mother?" Sohee stood, her moment of emotional vulnerability passing as her more practical nature reasserted itself. "Where is your mother?" "Working," Kieran said, "and avoiding Dad. Also a whole thing." "Mary," Miho said quietly. "Mary Park. You met her once, remember? 8 years ago." Recognition flickered across Sohee's face. "The translator. The American girl who was—" She trailed off, clearly remembering. "You were different when you were with her. Lighter. And then she left and you became—" She gestured at him vaguely, indicating the cold, controlled man he'd become. "She left because she thought I was cheating," Miho said, deciding honesty was the only path forward. "She was pregnant and she saw me with someone else and she left." "Were you cheating?" "I kissed someone else once. It meant nothing, but she saw it and she was pregnant and scared and in a foreign country with a man in a dangerous profession who she thought didn't want her anymore." So he finished, her voice sharp. "Oh, Miho." The disappointment in her voice cut deep. But before Miho could respond, Kai interjected. "Okay, but can we talk about the important stuff? Like, are you going to be a cool grandmother or a strict one? Because we need to know what we're working with here. Also, do you bake?" "Mom stress bakes sometimes, but she's not very good at it." The tension broke as Sohee laughed, the sound watery but genuine. "I can bake, and I'm going to be whatever kind of grandmother you need me to be." She looked at Miho. "We need to fix this. You need to talk to their mother." "She won't see me." "Then make her see you," Sohee said firmly. "These boys deserve a family. All of you do." The rest of the visit passed in a blur. Sohee produced her phone and took approximately 50 pictures, asking the twins questions about their lives with an eagerness that made Miho's chest tight. His mother had always wanted grandchildren, had been quietly disappointed when year after year passed without them. And now here they were, fully formed humans with personalities and opinions and her son's eyes. When it was time for the boys to leave, Sohee hugged them both so tightly that Kieran made an exaggerated choking sound. "You'll come to my house next time," she declared. "I have a garden and a pool, and I'm going to spoil you absolutely rotten." "Nice," Kai said approvingly. "We like being spoiled." After they left, Miho's mother turned to him with an expression he knew all too well, the one that meant she was about to dispense wisdom whether he wanted it or not. "Those boys are extraordinary," she said. "Smart, funny, kind despite everything. Their mother did that. She raised them alone and she did a beautiful job." "I know. So you're going to fix this. You're going to apologize to her properly. You're going to prove to her that you've changed. That you're not the arrogant boy who thought he could have everything without consequences." "What if she won't forgive me?" "Then you'll accept that and be the best father you can be anyway," Sohee said firmly. "But you have to try, Miho. You owe her that. You owe those boys that. You owe yourself that." After she left, Miho sat in his silent house and pulled up the security footage from Saturday, watching the moment his sons appeared at his door over and over again. Then he did something he hadn't done in years. He opened the locked drawer in his desk and pulled out the one thing he'd kept from his relationship with Mary. A photo, taken at a Han River picnic 8.5 years ago. She was laughing at something he'd said, her head thrown back, joy radiating from every line of her body. He was looking at her like she'd hung the moon. He'd loved her. He'd been too proud and stupid to say it back then, too caught up in his image and his position to just be real with her. But those boys, Kai with his math genius and artistic talent, Kieran with his dramatic flair and sharp perception, they were proof that something real and extraordinary had existed between them. He couldn't undo the past. Couldn't take back the kiss that had destroyed everything or the years Mary had spent alone. But maybe, just maybe, he could build something new. His phone buzzed. A message from Kai. Grandmother is cool. Very dramatic in a good way. Mom is home and noticed we smell like your fancy cologne. She's suspicious. Operation Get Parents to Talk is underway. K&K. Despite everything, Miho smiled. Those boys were definitely going to keep him on his toes. Tuesday evening found Miho doing something he never did, leaving work early. He'd spent the day distracted, making uncharacteristic mistakes in meetings, until finally his second-in-command, Sung, had pulled him aside. Boss, I don't know what's going on with you, but you just agreed to terms we never agreed to. You want to tell me what's happening? So Miho had told him. Not everything, there were limits even with Sung, but enough. About the boys, about Mary, about the fact that his entire life had been upended in a single weekend. Sung had stared at him for a long moment, then laughed. Actually laughed. Kong Miho, brought down by 8-year-olds. The guys are going to love this. Tell anyone and I'll make you do collections in Gangnam for a month. But Sung had gotten serious. Go home, boss. If you've got kids, they need you more than this business does right now. We'll survive an afternoon without you. So Miho went home and found himself standing in front of the house 3 doors down at 6 p.m. His heart pounding like he was about to walk into a raid. The house was smaller than his, more modest, but it had lights in the windows and the kind of warmth that came from people actually living in it, not just existing. He could hear music playing, something upbeat and American, and the sound of the twins arguing good-naturedly about something. He rang the doorbell. The music cut off abruptly. There was a scramble of feet, and then the door opened to reveal Kieran, whose eyes went wide. Oh man, Mom is going to freak out, he said, but he was grinning. Kai, Dad's here. Operation Get Parents to Talk is ahead of schedule. I didn't approve this phase yet. Kai's voice floated from somewhere inside. We were supposed to wait until Wednesday. Well, he's here now, so, Mom, you have a visitor. Miho heard a sharp intake of breath from deeper in the house, and then she appeared behind Kieran. 8 years had changed Mary Park, but somehow had only made her more beautiful. She'd cut her hair shorter, wore it natural now in a crown of coils. There were fine lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before, a wariness in her expression that hurt to see. She was wearing jeans and an oversized sweater, barefoot, looking so much like the woman he'd loved that it physically hurt. What are you doing here? Her voice was carefully neutral, but he could hear the tremor underneath. We need to talk. No, we don't. We have a custody arrangement. 2 hours, 3 days a week. That's all we need. Mary, don't. She held up a hand. Don't you dare marry me in that voice. You don't get to show up at my house after 8 years and... Boys, go to your room, Miho said quietly, not taking his eyes off Mary. But we want to watch the drama, Kai protested. Room. Now. Something in his voice, the voice he used when he needed to be obeyed without question, made both twins move. But not before Kieran whispered loudly, You're doing great, Dad. Very intense. She likes intense. Room. The boys scampered off and Miho could hear their door close, though he had no doubt they were listening at it. Mary's jaw was tight, her arms crossed defensively across her chest. You can't just order people around here like you do in your world, Miho. This is my house. These are my children. Our children. My children that I raised alone. Her voice cracked, and he saw 8 years of pain and anger and exhaustion flash across her face. My children that I carried and birthed and fed at 2 a.m. while you were doing God knows what with God knows who. You don't get to walk in here and claim them just because they showed up at your door. You're right. The words stopped her mid-breath. You're absolutely right. You did everything, and I did nothing, and there's no way I can ever make up for that. But Mary, I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know. You think that makes it better? She laughed, but it was a broken sound. You didn't know because I didn't tell you. I didn't tell you because I saw you with her, Miho. I saw you kiss her, saw the way she touched you, and her voice broke completely. I was on my way to tell you I was pregnant. I had the test in my purse. I was so happy, so scared, and then I saw you and I just, couldn't. I couldn't be the idiot who stayed with a man who didn't want her. I did want you. God, Mary. I wanted you so much it terrified me. Then why did you kiss her? The question came out as barely a whisper. Miho took a step closer, careful, like approaching something wild and wounded. Because I was stupid. Because she was familiar and you were new and real and I didn't know how to handle what I felt for you. It was my birthday. I was drunk. She kissed me and I kissed her back for maybe 10 seconds before I realized what I was doing and pushed her away. I went home to tell you, to apologize, and you were gone. 10 seconds. Mary's laugh was bitter. 10 seconds destroyed everything. I looked for you. For months. I had people checking every flight, every hotel, every hospital. You just vanished. I had help. My aunt, she has connections. She made sure you couldn't find me. Mary wiped at her eyes angrily. And maybe that was wrong. Maybe I should have told you. But I was so hurt, Miho. And then the boys were born and they were so perfect and I couldn't let them grow up in your world. Seeing violence. Living with the constant fear that their father might not come home one night. I understand. Do you? She looked at him, really looked at him, and he saw the woman he'd loved searching his face for something. Because those boys in there, they're everything to me. Everything. And they're already attached to you after one visit. They came home talking about their dad and their grandmother and already making plans. And I'm terrified, Miho. I'm terrified that you're going to let them down. That you're going to get hurt or arrested or killed and they're going to lose you just when they found you. I can't promise I won't get hurt. I can't promise that my life isn't complicated and sometimes dangerous. Miho took another step closer. But I can promise that those boys are my priority now. That I will do everything in my power to be there for them. To keep them safe. To be the father they deserve. And I can promise that I will never, ever do anything to hurt you again. Mary shook her head. Tears streaming freely now. You can't promise that. Nobody can promise that. Then let me try. Let me prove it to you. Why? The question was raw. Why now? Why do you care now? Because I never stopped caring. The words burst out of him with more force than he'd intended. Because losing you was the worst thing that ever happened to me and I've spent 8 years trying to pretend I was fine without you. Because those boys are mine and they're extraordinary and they exist because of one perfect summer when you made me believe I could be more than what I was born into. Because he stopped, took a breath. Because I love you. I loved you then. I've loved you every day since. And if you give me the chance, I'll spend the rest of my life proving it to you. The silence that followed was broken only by Mary's quiet crying and the barely concealed sound of the twins definitely not eavesdropping from their room. You broke my heart, Mary finally said. I know. It took me years to put it back together. I know. And I'm still not sure it's fully healed. I know. Miho reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently wiped a tear from her cheek. But maybe we don't need healed. Maybe we just need honest, real. I'm not the man I was 8 years ago, Mary. And I'm guessing you're not the same woman either. Maybe we can figure out who we are now together. Mary closed her eyes, leaning into his touch for just a moment before stepping back. I can't just fall back into this, Miho. I can't just forget everything and pretend we can pick up where we left off. I'm not asking you to. He let his hand drop. I'm asking for a chance. A real chance. Let me be in their lives. Let me show you that I've changed. And if eventually you can forgive me, if we can find something new together, then we'll figure it out. But if all we ever are is co-parents who are civil to each other, I'll accept that too. As long as I get to be their father. Mary studied him for a long moment, and he could see her mind working, weighing the risks against the possibilities. Finally, she took a shaky breath. Okay, she said quietly, but we do this my way. Slow, careful. Those boys don't get hurt, no matter what happens between us. And the first time you bring your business anywhere near them, we're done. Understood. Understood. And you go to therapy. Miho blinked. What? You heard me. Therapy. If you're going to be in their lives, in my life, I need to know you're actually dealing with your stuff. The violence, the control issues, whatever it is that makes you think running a criminal organization is a sustainable career choice. She crossed her arms again. But this time there was less anger and more determination. Non-negotiable. It was so unexpected that Miho almost laughed. You want me to go to therapy? I want you to be healthy. For them. For yourself. Mary's expression softened slightly. You were always carrying so much, Miho. So much anger and responsibility and pain that you never talked about. Those boys deserve a father who's working on himself, not just existing in survival mode. He wanted to argue, to say that he was fine, that he didn't need, but that would be a lie. He hadn't been fine in years, maybe ever. Okay, he said. I'll find a therapist. Mary's eyebrows shot up. Just like that. Just like that. He managed a small smile. If that's what it takes to be in your lives, I'll do it. I'll do whatever it takes. The door to the boys' room burst open and two identical figures came tumbling out, nearly falling over each other. You're going to therapy? That's so mature, Kieran announced. And Mom's crying, but in a good way, we think? Kai added uncertainly. It's hard to tell sometimes. Mary laughed through her tears, reaching out to pull both boys into a hug. You two are supposed to be in your room. We were in our room. You didn't say we couldn't listen at the door. Kai grinned unrepentantly. So does this mean Dad can stay for dinner? Because we made extra pasta and Mom always makes too much anyway. Mary looked at Miho over the boys' heads, something complicated passing across her face. I suppose, if he wants to stay, but he has to help clean up. I can do that, Miho said, his heart doing something strange and unfamiliar in his chest. Hope, maybe, or possibility. Dinner was chaotic in the best way. The twins talked over each other, telling stories and asking questions and creating the kind of noise that Miho's house had never heard. Mary moved around her small kitchen with practiced ease, and he found himself watching her. The way she smiled at something Kieran said, the way she automatically fixed Kai's collar without thinking about it, the way she'd built this whole life without him. She'd done it all alone, and she'd done it beautifully. When the boys finally went to bed, after extracting promises that Miho would come back Wednesday and that grandmother would visit soon, Mary walked him to the door. They stood in the doorway, the night air cool between them. This doesn't mean we're together, Mary said quietly. You know that, right? I know. And I'm still angry. It's going to take a long time for me to not be angry. I know that too. She nodded, then surprised him by reaching out and touching his hand briefly. But thank you for coming here, for wanting to try. Those boys, they need you. Even if I'm terrified of what that means. I'll keep them safe, Mary. I promise. Just make sure you keep yourself safe too. Her voice caught. Because as mad as I am at you, I don't want to have to explain to them why their father isn't coming back. Miho caught her hand before she could pull it away completely. I'm not going anywhere. Not this time. They stood there for a moment, hands linked, 8 years of hurt and longing between them. Then Mary gently extracted her hand and stepped back. Good night, Miho. Good night, Mary. He walked back to his house feeling lighter than he had in years, despite everything. Behind him, he heard Mary's door close, and when he glanced back, he could see her silhouette in the window, watching him. Inside his own house, his phone was buzzing with messages. Business that needed attending to, decisions that needed making. But for the first time in 8 years, work felt like it could wait. His sons were 3 houses away. The woman he loved was giving him a chance. And tomorrow, apparently, he was finding a therapist. Kong Miho, feared underboss of the Kong family syndicate, smiled to himself in the darkness. His boys were absolutely going to keep him on his toes. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what he needed. 3 months later, Miho's life had transformed in ways he couldn't have imagined. His calendar, once filled exclusively with business meetings and operations oversight, now had blocks labeled pick up boys from school, Kai's math competition, and Kieran's drama club performance. His pristine house had slowly accumulated signs of life, drawings stuck to his refrigerator with magnets, a soccer ball in the hallway, 2 booster seats in his car that his associates pretended not to notice. And therapy. God, therapy. Dr. Yoon Jae-woo was a slight woman in her 50s who had looked entirely unimpressed when Miho had walked into her office the first time. She'd listened to his carefully edited version of his life, leaving out specific details of his work but making it clear he operated in morally complex spaces. And then said, "So you're here because your ex-girlfriend is making you come, not because you actually want to be here." "Yes," he'd admitted. "Well, at least you're honest. That's a start." 3 months in, and Dr. Yoon had somehow gotten him to talk about things he'd never spoken about. His father's death when he was 19, the pressure of inheriting the family business, the way violence had become so normalized he sometimes forgot there were other ways to solve problems. She called him out on his control issues, his difficulty expressing emotion, his tendency to use intimidation as a default communication style. "You can't parent 8-year-olds the way you manage your organization," she'd said bluntly. "Children need vulnerability, not authority." It was the hardest work he'd ever done, and the boys noticed the changes. Kai had said just last week, "Dad, you're getting better at the whole feelings thing. You only went full scary boss voice twice this month." "Is that good?" Miho had asked. "It's improvement," Kai had said diplomatically. The boys had fully integrated him into their lives with the adaptability of children. They'd established routines. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons were at Miho's place, where he helped with homework, or tried to. Kai's advanced math often stumped him. Tuesday and Thursday evenings were dinners at Mary's, where Miho had been surprised to discover he actually enjoyed cooking with her. Weekends alternated, with elaborate outings planned by his mother, who had fully embraced her grandmother role with an enthusiasm that bordered on obsessive. So he had converted one of her guest rooms into what she called the boys' room, complete with bunk beds, video games, and enough toys to stock a small store. She'd learned to braid hair for Kai, who liked his hair longer, and had become Kieran's enthusiastic audience for his increasingly dramatic monologue performances. "You're spoiling them," Mary had said, but she'd been smiling. "I have 8 years to make up for." So he had replied unapologetically, "I'm going to spoil them until they're 30. But the real complexity was Mary. True to her word, she'd kept things strictly co-parenting. She was cordial, friendly even, but there was always a careful distance between them. She never stayed long when he picked up the boys. She texted only about logistics. When their hands accidentally touched during the dinner routine, she'd pull away like she'd been burned. Miho respected her boundaries, but it was killing him, especially because he could see the way she sometimes looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching. A longing that matched his own, quickly shuddered behind practiced walls. The twins, of course, had noticed. "You two are being ridiculous," Kieran had announced one evening when they thought the boys were out of earshot. "You're clearly still in love with each other, but you're doing this weird dance where you pretend you're not. It's exhausting to watch." "Kieran James Park," Mary had started. "Don't middle name me. I'm right," Kieran had shot back. "Kai, back me up. He's not wrong," Kai had said. "You guys have been making eyes at each other for 3 months. Just kiss already so we can be a normal family." "We are a normal family," Mary had said firmly. "Just a different kind of normal." But even she hadn't sounded entirely convinced. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday in November. Miho had just finished picking up the boys from school when Kai's phone rang. The boy's face went pale as he listened, and Miho felt his stomach drop even before Kai said, "Mom? Mom, what's wrong? Slow down." Miho pulled over immediately, taking the phone from Kai's shaking hand. "Mary? What happened?" "There was an accident." Her voice was tight with pain. "A car ran a red light, hit my driver's side. I'm okay mostly, but my arm is broken and they want to keep me overnight for observation because I hit my head. I'm at Seoul National University Hospital and I can't pick up the boys, I can't." "We're coming." Miho was already pulling back into traffic, his mind shifting into the crisis management mode that had served him well in his other life. "Stay on the phone with me." "Which emergency room?" "You can't bring the boys to the ER." "Then I'll call my mother to get them." "Mary, just tell me where you are." He got the information, called his mother with his Bluetooth, and had the whole thing organized in under 5 minutes. So he would meet them at the hospital to take the boys, and Miho would stay with Mary. The boys were uncharacteristically quiet in the back seat, holding hands in a way they thought he couldn't see in the rearview mirror. "Is Mom going to be okay?" Kieran asked, his voice small in a way Miho had never heard before. "Yes," Miho said firmly. She's hurt, but she's going to be fine. I promise. At the hospital. So he arrived within minutes, sweeping the protesting boys into her arms and promising them updates every hour. Miho found Mary in a curtained-off bay in the emergency department, her arm in a temporary splint, a bandage on her forehead, looking smaller and more vulnerable than he'd ever seen her. Miho. Her voice broke on his name, and then she was crying, really crying, in a way she hadn't even when they'd fought. I was so scared. All I could think was what if I died and the boys had to find out and I never got to say, shoo. He was at her side in an instant, carefully pulling her against him with his arms around her shoulders, mindful of her injuries. You're okay. You're safe. The boys are safe. Everything's okay. It's not okay. She sobbed into his chest. Nothing's been okay. I've been so stupid, keeping you at distance because I was scared and proud, and I didn't want to admit that I never stopped loving you either. Miho's heart stopped. What? Mary pulled back enough to look at him, tears streaming down her face. I love you. I've loved you this whole time, even when I hated you, even when I tried to convince myself I was over you. And life is so short, Miho. That car came out of nowhere, and all I could think was that I've wasted 3 months we could have spent being happy because I was too afraid to forgive you. Mary, I forgive you. She cupped his face with her good hand. For the kiss, for not being there, for all of it. I forgive you. And I'm sorry for not telling you about the boys. I'm sorry for running away instead of giving you a chance to explain. I'm sorry for wasting so much time. Miho couldn't speak. His throat was too tight, his eyes burning with tears he hadn't let himself shed in years. Say something, Mary whispered. So he kissed her. It wasn't like their first kiss had been tentative, exploratory, new. This was years of longing compressed into a single moment, desperate and gentle and healing all at once. She tasted like tears and hospital antiseptic and coming home. When they finally pulled apart, they were both crying. I love you, Miho said, the words he should have said 8 years ago. I love you, and I'm going to spend every day proving it to you. I'm going to be the man you deserve, the father our boys deserve. I'm going to. You already are, Mary interrupted softly. I've been watching you with them, Miho. The way you help with homework and listen to their stories and let Kieran practice his monologues on you even though you clearly have no idea what's happening. The way you're trying so hard to be better. That's all I ever wanted. I'm still in therapy. Good. Keep going. And my work. We'll figure it out. She touched his face again, like she was memorizing it. I'm not saying it'll be easy, but we'll figure it out together, like we should have done from the start. A nurse appeared then, apologetic but firm about needing to take Mary for x-rays. Miho reluctantly let her go, watching as they wheeled her away. His phone immediately buzzed with a text from Kai. Grandmother says Mom is okay? And that you're with her? What's happening? KNK. He smiled, typing back. Your mom is going to be fine. Broken arm, mild concussion. They're keeping her overnight just to be safe. And we're going to be okay too. All of us. The response was immediate. Does this mean you're getting back together? We're taking it slow. But yes, eventually, finally. Kieran says he called it. I say we both called it. We're coming to the hospital. Your grandmother isn't going to let you. We have our ways. 10 minutes later, Miho heard a commotion in the hallway. And then so he appeared with 2 determined 8-year-olds who'd clearly won whatever argument had occurred. They threatened to stage a dramatic scene in the hospital lobby. So he said dryly. Something about Kieran reciting Shakespeare at full volume until I relented. The quality of mercy is not strained, Kieran quoted dramatically. It was going to be very moving. The boys rushed to Miho, and he gathered them both into his arms, these extraordinary children who'd crashed into his life, and changed everything. Is Mom really okay? Kai asked. Really okay. Broken arm, and she'll have a headache for a bit, but she's going to be fine. And are you guys? You know? Kieran made vague gestures that were presumably meant to indicate romance. We're working on it, Miho said diplomatically. That's parent speak for yes, Kai translated for his brother. When Mary was brought back from x-rays, now with a proper cast and orders to rest, Her face lit up at seeing the boys. They climbed carefully onto her hospital bed, one on each side, and the picture they made. Mary with her arms around their sons, all three of them smiling despite everything, made Miho's chest ache with love. "We were so worried," Kieran said, uncharacteristically serious. "I'm okay, baby. I promise." Mary kissed the top of his head, then Kai's. "It takes more than a bad driver to keep me down. And Dad told us he's going to take care of you," Kai added. "Which is good because you're really bad at letting people take care of you." "I am not, Mom." Both boys looked at her with identical expressions of affectionate exasperation. "You tried to go to work with the flu last month. You're terrible at this." Mary laughed, then winced, touching her head. "Okay, maybe a little terrible. Fine. Your dad can take care of me, but just while I'm injured. And after," Miho said firmly, moving to stand beside the bed. "If you'll let me." She looked up at him, and the walls that had been between them for months were finally, fully down. "Yeah," she said softly. "I'll let you." "Gross," Kieran said. But he was grinning. "You guys are going to be all romantic now, aren't you?" "Probably," Mary admitted. "Called it," both boys said in unison. 3 weeks later, Mary was cleared to go back to work with her arm still in a cast, and life settled into a new rhythm. A better rhythm. Miho spent most evenings at Mary's house now, though he kept his own place for appearances and because, as Mary said, "We're taking this slow, remember?" But slow was relative when you had 8-year-olds who'd decided their parents belonged together and actively worked to make it happen. The boys had become expert matchmakers. They accidentally made dinner reservations for 2 and then claimed they wanted to stay with grandmother. They left romantic movies playing on the TV. Kieran had even written a short play titled Two People Who Should Really Just Admit They're in Love Already, and performed it for the family, with Kai playing the piano as dramatic accompaniment. "Subtle," Mary had muttered, but she'd been laughing. Miho's business associates had noticed changes too. He was more careful now, more selective about which operations he directly oversaw. He'd started transitioning more of the family empire toward legitimate businesses, using his position to gradually reshape things. It would take years, maybe decades, but he was committed to it. For his sons, for Mary, for the man he wanted to become. "You've gone soft," Sung had joked one day. "Maybe," Miho had said, "but I have a lot more to lose now. That changes things." The real test came in December, when an old rival family made moves on Kong territory. The old Miho would have responded with immediate, overwhelming force. The new Miho, the one who went to therapy and tucked his sons into bed at night, found a diplomatic solution that avoided bloodshed. "I'm proud of you," Dr. Yoon had said in their next session. "That couldn't have been easy." It wasn't, but I kept thinking about how I'd explain it to the boys if things went wrong, if someone got hurt, and I found another way. That's growth. On Christmas morning, Miho woke up in Mary's guest room. Slow. They were taking it slow, even if they sometimes fell asleep on the couch together watching movies, to the sound of chaos downstairs. He found the boys already tearing into presents while Mary sat in her pajamas, cast-free now, laughing at their excitement. "Merry Christmas," she said when she spotted him. And there was so much love in her eyes it took his breath away. "Merry Christmas," he replied, moving to sit beside her on the couch. The boys had bought him presents. Kai had made him a painting of their family, all 4 of them holding hands, with grandmother in the background. And Kieran had written him a story about the best dad in the world who learned to use his words instead of his scary face. "I don't have a scary face," Miho protested. "You really do." Mary, Kai, Kieran, and Sohee, who'd arrived early, said in unison. Later, after presents were opened and breakfast was eaten, Miho found Mary in the kitchen, looking out at the snow falling softly in the backyard. "Hey," he said softly, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "You okay?" "Better than okay." She leaned back against him. "A year ago, I was so alone, Miho. It was just me and the boys, and I was terrified about moving back to Korea, scared of what might happen if you found out about them. And now I have this. A family." She turned in his arms to face him. "I know we're taking it slow. I know we're not officially together. But, Mary Park. Miho pulled a small box from his pocket, watching her eyes go wide. I've been carrying this around for a month, waiting for the right moment. And I think the right moment is now. Miho, I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet. I know we need more time, we need to keep building what we have. He opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. But this is a promise. Promise that I'm all in. That I choose you, and the boys, and this family we're building. That I'm not going anywhere. And someday, when you're ready, I'm going to ask you properly. But for now, will you wear this? As a promise. Mary's eyes filled with tears. You ridiculous man. Of course I will. He slipped the ring on her finger, and she pulled him down for a kiss that was interrupted by twin shouts of, "Finally!" from the doorway. Were you two spying? Mary demanded, pulling away to glare at the boys. Obviously, Kai said. Grandmother helped. She's at the window with binoculars. Sure enough, when they looked, so he waved cheerfully from outside, binoculars in hand. Your family is insane, Mary laughed, but she was crying happy tears now. Our family, Miho corrected, pulling her close again as the boys crashed into them both, creating a chaotic group hug. Our perfectly insane family. 6 months later, at a small ceremony in Sohee's garden with only close family present, Miho slipped a wedding band onto Mary's finger. I promise to love you through everything, he said. The good, the bad, and the completely chaotic that our sons will definitely provide. Hey! Kai and Kieran protested from their positions as co-ring bearers. Mary laughed, tears streaming down her face as she slid a ring onto his finger. I promise to forgive your scary face, support your growth, and only occasionally remind you that I was right about therapy. You were right about therapy, Miho admitted, to scattered laughter from the small crowd. I promise, Mary continued, her voice softening, to build this life with you, all of it, the beautiful and the complicated and everything in between. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the officiant said. You may. But Miho was already kissing her, to the sound of their sons cheering and Sohee crying happy tears and sung wolf whistling from the back. At the reception, Kieran insisted on performing a monologue he'd written about love, forgiveness, and the power of really stubborn children. Kai had made a slideshow of family photos set to music he'd composed himself. So he gave a speech about miracles and second chances that left everyone crying. You know, Mary said later, slow dancing with Miho as the sun set over the garden. 8 years ago, I never would have believed we'd end up here. Here. Miho pulled her closer, careful of her dress. Happy, married, with 2 amazing boys who are definitely going to give us gray hair before we're 40. She smiled up at him. Back then, I thought you were too broken and I was too proud and we'd missed our chance. What changed? 2 very determined 8-year-olds showed up at your door and decided to fix everything. Mary glanced over to where Kai and Kieran were teaching Sohee a complicated video game dance move. They're pretty extraordinary. They got it from their mother. And their father, Mary said firmly. Don't sell yourself short. You've come so far, Miho. You're not the same man you were. Neither are you. You're stronger. Softer somehow, but stronger. We both grew up, Mary said. Just took us 8 years and a couple of matchmaking kids to figure it out. Kieran appeared at their side, pulling at Miho's sleeve. Dad, Kai says you have to come see this thing grandmother is trying to do. It involves a drone and I'm pretty sure it's dangerous. Why do I feel like my life is going to be constant chaos from now on? Miho asked the universe. Because it definitely is, Mary laughed. But that's what makes it beautiful. As Miho was dragged away to supervise whatever catastrophe his mother and sons were creating, he caught Mary's eye across the garden. She was laughing, surrounded by friends, her ring catching the light, and she'd never looked more beautiful. 8 years ago, he'd lost her because of pride and stupidity. Today, he'd married her because 2 8-year-old boys had decided their parents belonged together and refused to take no for an answer. Dad, the drone is stuck in a tree, Kai yelled. Grandmother tried to get it down with a broom, Kieran added. Now grandmother is also in the tree, so he called cheerfully. Miho looked skyward, silently asking for patience, then headed toward the chaos with a smile on his face. 2 years later, "Dad, we have a situation," Kai announced, walking into Miho's home office where he was reviewing quarterly reports from the legitimate side of the family business. "What kind of situation?" Miho asked, though he'd learned to be wary of that tone. "Kieran got into a fight at school." Miho was on his feet immediately. "Is he okay? What happened?" "He's fine, but he punched a kid for saying mom was too old to have another baby." Miho froze. "Another? What?" Kai grinned, pulling out his phone and showing Miho a text from Mary. "Tell your father to come home. We need to talk. And yes, before you ask, yes." Surprise. Miho stared at the text, then at Kai, then back at the text. "Your mother is pregnant?" Apparently, Kieran heard her on the phone with Auntie talking about it, which is how he knew to defend her honor at school. Very dramatic. The other kid apparently said something about mom being ancient for having a baby at 34, and Kieran went full protective mode. "He punched a kid. In our defense," Kieran said, appearing in the doorway with what looked like an ice pack on his knuckles. The kid had it coming. "Nobody talks about our mom like that." Miho looked at his sons. 10 years old now, still finishing each other's sentences, still creating chaos wherever they went. Then he looked at the text from Mary again. Another baby. He was going to be a father again. "I need to go home," he said faintly. Obviously, both boys said in unison. He found Mary in their bedroom. They'd officially moved in together a year ago, though he still kept his old place for business purposes, sitting on the edge of the bed with a nervous expression. "So," she said. "Surprise." Miho crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms. "How long have you known?" 3 days. I was trying to figure out how to tell you. Then Kieran punched a kid and I figured the cat was out of the bag. He punched a kid for defending your honor. I'm almost proud. Don't encourage the violence, Mary said, but she was laughing. How do you feel about this? Miho pulled back to look at her, this woman who'd given him everything. A family, a purpose, a reason to be better. How do I feel? Mary, I missed the first 8 years with the twins. I'm terrified and overwhelmed and so happy I might cry, which the boys say I'm getting better at. You are getting better at it, Mary confirmed, touching his face gently. Dr. Yoon would be proud. A baby, Miho said wonderingly. We're having a baby. We're having a baby, Mary confirmed. The twins are going to be big brothers. Your mother is going to completely lose it. And yes, we're probably insane for doing this, but he kissed her, deep and thorough and full of promise. We're definitely insane, but that's what makes us us. From the hallway, they heard twin voices. They're definitely crying. Happy crying though, right? Better be. I punched a kid for this baby. You punched a kid because you're dramatic. Same thing. Miho and Mary broke apart, laughing, as their sons appeared in the doorway. So, Kai said, baby sibling. Cool. Can we request a girl? We're outnumbered on the boy side. That's not how it works, Mary said. Can we teach it to fight? Kieran asked. Since apparently I need backup when defending family honor. Absolutely not, both parents said in unison. We're going to teach it piano, Kai decided. And math, important life skills. And drama, Kieran added. Obviously, as the boys debated the future accomplishments of their unborn sibling, Miho pulled Mary close, resting his hand on her still flat stomach. Think we can handle 3? He murmured. We're handling these 2, aren't we? Mary gestured at Kai and Kieran, who were now acting out elaborate scenarios of sibling adventures. Barely. Well then. Mary kissed his jaw softly. Barely is good enough. We'll figure it out. Together. Together, Miho agreed. And as the afternoon sun streamed through the windows, illuminating his wife, his sons, and the promise of new life growing between them, Kong Miho thought about the man he'd been 8 years ago. Arrogant, closed off, convinced he had everything under control. That man had had nothing. This man, messy, emotional, occasionally overwhelmed, perpetually confused by his children's schemes, had everything. Dad, Kieran called. Grandmother is calling. She says she heard a rumor, and if it's true and we didn't tell her first, she's disowning all of us. How does she already know? Mary asked in disbelief. The hospital receptionist is apparently in her book club, Kai explained. You really should have been more careful about which clinic you went to. Miho sighed, pulling out his phone. I'll call her. Tell her we want a sister, both boys yelled. And tell her we're naming it after her if it's a girl, Kieran added. We are absolutely not, Mary started. But Miho was already laughing, phone to his ear, preparing to break the news to his mother that she was getting another grandchild. His life was chaos. His children were stubborn, brilliant menaces. His mother was overbearing and wonderful. His wife was strong and beautiful and put up with all of them. And somehow, impossibly, it was perfect. Just the way a family should be.
Hello besties, in this story we learned that people can change if they commit to the work. Love is a choice you make every day, not just a feeling. Family is built through consistent action, not DNA alone. Vulnerability and seeking help are signs of strength. Bestie, growth isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming better than you were yesterday. Thank you so much for watching. Kindly like, subscribe and share.